Cofield and Company back on a Friday. No show today with Black Friday, company holiday. So we are here to do a little bit of sports talk on this Friday and get ready for UNLV football over the weekend on Saturday. Willie Ramirez is here with us. Willie's got a super busy weekend that starts later this afternoon. So what's your schedule, buddy?
I have the Ball Dogs Classic. I was out there a couple of nights ago, watched Cameron Brink and the Stanford Cardinal put a second half run together and beat up on Belmont. Well, it actually went until the fourth quarter. So I'll be watching them tonight in the championship against number 13 Florida State. Tomorrow I have the Benavides fight with an eye on online. I'll be keeping an eye on the Golden Knights. And then Sunday, the Raiders in a huge game, I think, for both teams, to be quite honest. Chiefs off a short week. A lot of missed balls on Monday night, so I don't think there'll be many missed balls this week. I can only imagine what Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid said to the wideouts. But, of course, the Raiders trying to get back to 500. We know what they did a couple of years ago when they fell below 500. And the Chiefs were right in the middle of that sort of that late season run. So be interesting to see how they respond, how both teams respond in this situation.
What do you think of what the Raiders have done under Antonio Pierce?
I think that, I don't know how much. I think the first game, obviously, there was a lot of emotion. It's hard to gauge the first two wins only because it was the Giants and the Jets. The Jets have a great defense. We know that. But in terms of stopping a team and coming up with big plays, being motivated with the new leadership, something that it was apparent that the players wanted, it still was hard to gauge. I think what you have to do is, when you look at last week, is the fact that they went into Miami against a Dolphins team that earlier this year did put up 70 points on the board, does have some high skill position players on the offensive side. And the defense, once again, put the Raiders in position to win that game. What are you going to do? Jalen Ramsey's who he is. So I feel more than anything, it feels a lot like a couple of years ago, the locker room, Bisaccia, the motivation, the chemistry, the bond. So this Sunday is going to be very telling. Very telling.
How so?
Well, because the Chiefs are coming off of a short week, right? We saw them make a lot of mistakes in terms of dropping the ball a lot, but neither here nor there. It's a rivalry game. They have to prepare off the short week. They have to come into Allegiant. I think the Raiders fans are going to be a little more fired up than we. Let me rephrase that. We're going to see them show out a little more than we have in the past because I think they're a little more excited and motivated. Yeah. I think it's going to be a pro-Chiefs crowd because of the red. It's vibrant. You feel the energy from the opposing crowd. But I think that there's a lot of motivating factors based on the guys that are here, the guys that were here a couple of years ago under Bisaccia, the few that are still left, and the attitude that they're playing with. So, I just think that it's a very big game for the Raiders as much as it may be for the Chiefs. And I think the Chiefs better be really careful because, as I mentioned, the defense, the Las Vegas Raiders defense, has been the unit that's kept them in games. They may have been 3-5, but there were some games where they could have very easily won if the offense was operating right, and it just wasn't. And I don't think that all of a sudden it's better because of Antonio Pierce, who has a defensive mind. I just think that they're able to operate based off the skills that they have without that pressure and that condescending way that Josh McDaniels coached with.
Can they stop Kelsey? Slow down.
Well, absolutely, because Taylor Swift won't be there, right?
I was just going to use that line, or is it already taken care of because Taylor's in South America or wherever she is?
Yeah, it's a matter of who they line up against him. I mean, he's going to be all over he can line up anywhere. He can be active, in motion. And who checks him off the line and sort of, if they have. I personally think that the Raiders defense is physical enough to disrupt any offense for a period of time. It's really a matter of the offense doing its share to keep the defense off the field against a team like Kansas City. keeping those legs fresh, keeping them, keeping their rest, between series. 3 and outs are not going to work. The good thing is Kansas City's not necessarily known for its defense. It's a lot more improved, but we'll see what happens. I like the use of Hunter Renfrow. I think Mike Merritt could possibly play a role. So if I like the fact that they've expanded the weaponry, if you will, and that Kansas City's going to have to keep an eye on what they do. They're going to have to get crafty, but by extending the drives and keeping the defense fresh, I think that they can contain Kelsey because they're a physical bunch.
I guess in a kind of a wicked way, the players could be motivated. One, they want to win because they want to win. But two, the more wins they get, the worse it makes Josh McDaniels look. It obviously helps boost Antonio Pierce for a job, I think, somewhere down the road. He doesn't have a shot at this job, right?
Well, I think it all depends on what kind of run the Raiders make down the stretch, because I think the two mistakes that Mark Davis doesn't want to make, number one, is he doesn't want to usher out an interim coach that sort of brings together a locker room like he has. And number two, I think he's going to want to consult with some of the leaders on the team, which I'm not sure that he did when it came to Josh McDaniels. Maybe he asked her opinion, but he maybe also pushed it aside or he didn't take it serious. I think this time around, he's going to want to hear from, the leaders on this team and have some input. I mean, you don't want to, have the players ruling the roost and running the show and telling the owner what to do. But at the same time, it's obvious that in this situation, that's what mattered, right? They were unhappy with McDaniels. The attitude was horrible. Fault the toxicity that McDaniels created. So with Antonio Pierce, if he's bringing that locker room together, and Mark Davis is now saying he made a mistake with Bisaccia, it all depends on how they operate down the stretch in these bigger games. You can say, hey, started off great and they loved it, but again, Giants and Jets. Let's see what they do. Let's see how they compete against the top tier teams.
I hadn't thought about it. We haven't done it on Cofield and Company on terrestrial. The fact that Pierce is in, Kelly has a chance at the GM job, maybe it's a whole new regime. I wonder if Josh Jacobs is now thinking, you know what? Maybe I do have a chance to stay with the Raiders. Maybe they will pay me.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously taken some time to get going, but we said it last year. We didn't say that Josh McDaniels was sabotaging the offense or sabotaging the team, but he wasn't making things easy on Derek Carr. And I think it's safe to say that he certainly made things hard and made Derek look worse than he actually was. I think it's safe to say the same thing. I mean, we talked about this a lot last season. Heck, he had Josh Jacobs in the first 2 series of the Hall of Fame game last year. So obviously, he had a chip. There's a chip against Josh. I think anything that took the spotlight away from Josh McDaniels, anybody who was a fan favorite, a locker room favorite, a guy, a previous regime guy, he had something against. He has somewhat of a inferior complex in that manner, and Antonio Pierce doesn't. It's all about the players because he was a player and he understands the locker room, and he's been retired for a minute and he's been an assistant coach, but he still has that locker room vibe and he understands. So I think Josh Jacobs would love to play for a guy like Antonio Pierce. The other question is, who is going to be available? Who's going to be out there? And do you want to run the risk if you have that piece in position and they don't make the playoffs, but they've shown competitiveness and you can really place the 5 losses, pin those 5 losses on McDaniels to the crux of the problem or the downfall of the season, and not necessarily any losses under Pierce, I have to say he's a legitimate candidate and can keep a lot of these guys.
Willie's back. Willie Ramirez on Cofield and Company. We're doing a podcast today. No Friday show because of Black Friday. Appreciate you watching. We're very busy. I'm holding off Black Friday shopping. I'll get to that in a couple minutes. And Willie's got a really busy schedule coming up now. We appreciate you guys watching. Tomorrow's VGK. Their standard is so freaking high that when they go through a stint like they're in right now, where they're 3-5 over the last 8, they're still 14-4-1 or 2 overall. What have you seen in this little lull here that I guess wouldn't be very noticeable if not for the fact that they got out to a ridiculous start?
I just think that they're emotionally drained, Steve. I mean, come on. Everything that this team has gone through in terms of, that week leading up to the opener alone, everything that they had to do around town, appearances they were making, then the red carpet walk, and then the banner raising. I mean, yeah, we're going on a month now, but nevertheless, that's just a lot, right? And then some up and backs. They played a relatively easy schedule to start. And then you throw them back east and they go to the White House. And then the next night they're with the Capitals. It wasn't even surprising that they got shut out. I just think that it's just a lot catching up to them. You know what I mean? Can't really blame anything on injuries. And I just think it's the NHL. It happens. They're going to go through lulls. Teams that play every night, NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball, they go through lulls and then they bounce back. They'll go on like another crazy 13-1 run at some point. And all of a sudden, we'll forget about this. I don't think it's anything to be concerned with. I don't think that there's a problem. I just think that they're mentally, emotionally, and physically drained from the start of the season, which started off the way that it did as the Stanley Cup champs.
Question for you: Are you emotionally and mentally drained from Thanksgiving? What'd you do?
I went to my mom's.
Yep.
If you remember last year, I think we made a big joke about it, right? We talked about it weeks after. We made a promo over it. I once again made my shrimp mac and cheese.
I won't do it. I won't say
it. Do you know how to make mac and cheese?
Do you know how to make mac and cheese? And you were like, what? Of course he does. Of course he does.
I brought some mac and cheese. Jordan brought over 2 bottles of wine, one of them being a red Camus, which is ridiculous, and a bottle of Macallan. I'll just leave it there.
Look at you guys.
That might have been
Jordan's having a good year. Jordan's having a real good year.
Yes. Might have been the reason why I crashed early and I got up pretty early and got the gym out of the way at about 3:00 this morning. So
I figured it was either the food was sitting there or maybe a little drinkies.
It was and it was nothing, I wasn't hammered or anything, and we're just enjoying ourselves, sipping here and there, and
it's good.
Traditional dinner. Didn't overdo it. Been going ham in the gym. Got a new program. Been playing go about 10 weeks in, still got about 2 months before the goal. The goal is Super Bowl. Super Bowl's coming.
What's the goal?
Just trim up. Just trim up,
You're gonna go. Are you gonna wear suits every day around the Super Bowl that week, or are you gonna go one day where you're like Virgil from wrestling, show off the guns?
Definitely. I think that's what I'm gonna do on Monday for media day.
Nice.
Is I'll have some short sleeve shirts.
Send a message. Send a message. Don't F with me. Get out of my way when I'm doing interviews. And if I have a one-on-one, it's a one-on-one. It doesn't mean that it's a scrum. Here you go. Boom.
Yeah. Got to walk up and down Radio Row.
Yeah.
Maybe Mad Dog McAfee a few times. Of course, stop by the Cofield booth. Whatever it is. But yeah, and then I've got about 4 suits that I have yet to wear. One of them's like over 2 years old. It's just sitting there. So one of them will get broken out for Super Bowl Sunday. All I know is that I'm booked for Monday, media day, and I'm booked for Sunday, the game. What else is going on that week is absolutely crazy from the outside world in terms of, I know that Dana wants to do a power slap in the UFC that week, and I know that Top Rank wants to do a Thursday card like they just did last week with Shakur Stevenson.
Good idea.
So all these, they're all taking advantage of Super Bowl week. They wanted, like in Dana's words, he wants to show everyone. So it's not a matter of trying to take away the spotlight, but just adding to it in just how big Las Vegas is.
It's brilliant. You mentioned you have 4 suits you haven't worn. You have a lot of suits. Here's me on Black Friday, and here's me from a dressing standpoint. Today's goal is to go and get some sports coats at a big discount. But I mean, like literally, it's going to be Kohl's and JCPenney. And my goal is to get some sports coats for around like 60, 70, 80 bucks. Because I'm frugal, and I only have to have a basic look just to cover up the gut a little bit. Look okay. in the remaining TV spots I have on Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network. So I'll work that.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
This is a step up from a couple of years ago when the black sport coat or the Navy school, that was good enough. You had one or two. Now look at you. You got a few remaining spots. You want a few. All of a sudden you sound like me where no, I'm not wearing the same one on TV all over.
I gotta have a rotation. A little bit of a rotation.
Kohl's is on my list. That's actually my favorite holiday place to go. Because first of all, at a certain point, at a certain point, they open 24 hours.
Yep.
They have great deals. I got a credit card there. They've really stepped their game up in terms of different quality.
Really?
I feel so. You know what? To be honest with you, there was a point in time where I stopped buying suits and I was buying sport coats, like these crazy, funky designs. Not as crazy as Darrell Evans from my boy with the LA Kings, but some, just and I needed slacks, just cool slacks. But I didn't want to go to the tailor and, spend 3 figures. Kohl's had a decent fabric that you'd never know, reasonably priced, bought like 4 of them.
Oh, wow.
Neutral color, black, gray, navy, and tan. And they go with all my sport coats. So Kohl's has good stuff. I like Kohl's. And at a certain point, they open 24 hours. And most importantly, you get the Kohl's cash that you could use after the new year.
Yep. The Kohl's cash is essential for just basics. That is usually where I reload on some old man underwear and load up on socks.
Yes, that's exactly what I do.
Exactly what you use it for.
Socks and underwear. I don't know what old man underwear are, but at our age, we're old and they're underwear. So
that's exactly what I meant. I wasn't going to describe my underwear. I think we got into that the other day on Cofield and Company about 3 weeks ago, and I was like, okay, enough of this conversation. Yeah. Actually, you know what the conversation was, as typical on our show, is JBT had his youngest boy finally snipped, got the tip of the wee snipped, and then all of a sudden it was like John's like, hey, are you guys snipped? I'm like, all right, we're not doing this conversation on what are we doing here? All right, we hooded or not, we're not doing this. All right, so this is a massive weekend. You got VGK, you got the Raiders coming up. I'm going to ask you on Black Friday. This one's tough for me because people who listen over the years, I love Black Friday, and I'm still one of the idiots who goes out to the stores. Like, I don't want to shop online. I want to touch and see and feel. And they put a football game on. Now, I understand what the Zon is doing here, what Bezos is trying to do, keep us all captive at home and make sure we don't go to brick and mortar and we further, continue to be zombies walking towards the great Amazon wasteland down the road. It's the Jets and the Dolphins. Like, I think I'm going to watch. I think I'm going to be driving around and, watching on my phone and probably listening. I don't
was going to say,
like, today's too big a day. And right now the Jets have become, I mean, frankly, they were a laughing stock the second they decided to play Zach Wilson for like 9 games after Rodgers went down. And now I don't know what they're doing. In a way, this is going to sound crazy. I like the Dolphins, and they should be hated rivals, but I like the way they play football. So I don't. What do you expect today? You think the Jets are going to keep up with them?
I do.
I
actually
like Boyle backed up by whoever, and then Zach Wilson not really available today.
I like the Jets plus the points.
Hey, yeah, there we go.
If the Raiders can go into Miami and have to lose on their last drive with that offense, which is nothing glaring, then I think that the Jets defense, which could be a notch better than the Raiders, I think that they can at least keep it within single digits.
Right.
I don't think that offense is as good as Miami's.
Yeah.
And the last time I questioned Miami going to cold weather was last season, and they went up, and I think that they trounced Buffalo, and it was even later in the season. So I'm not going to use that one, but I just, I have to wonder if Miami overlooks them. I'll tell you what, I went 3-0 yesterday in my sports betting write-ups, and I loved the Green Bay Packers. I thought the Packers were
Why?
Because I felt as if the Lions had to come back last week. Okay. I felt as if last year they were up by 21, or excuse me, the first meeting they were up by like 21, and then they put it in cruise control. And I really did think that the Lions were going to sort of not overlook the Packers, but not take them as serious, just kind of assume that they were going to win. They're starting to buy into the hype. They're the first place team. It's our stadium. It's 9:30. Let's send people home. They forgot that Green Bay is coming to play. And as bad as Jordan Love has been and the interceptions he's thrown, he's coming off of a career game. So he was coming in with some confidence. I just felt that it was a good spot. Again, rivalry game, Thanksgiving. Detroit's going to overlook us. Let's just go in and try to take a shot. I did not think that Green Bay was going to win outright, and I didn't think that they were going to win the way that they did. Could they have won? Yeah, maybe. But the Lions have had some close games. They've had to come back in some games this year. So I like them. I like the Jets today because of their defense. I think we could be looking at the same thing. Now, because of what took place yesterday, maybe Miami saying, hey, let's not get caught, overlooking the Lions.
Right.
But to your point about Bezos and trying to keep you at home, you nailed it. How many wives are going to have, or girlfriends are going to have, or SOs are going to have their guy out there with them, and those guys are going to have headphones in with the phone, can very easily stream it while you're shopping.
Yep. And you know what? I should go back on what I said. I sounded kind of mopey about the Jets. This is what I've been asking for, right? Yep. Just someone else at quarterback. Now, Boyle may suck, but I think they're going to at least try to throw the ball. And I think they're so afraid to throw anything that requires any time for Zach Wilson. Basically, Zach Wilson is only effective on 3-step drops, ball out. That's it. And that's his problem, is that he doesn't get the ball out on the 3-step drop. Then you're dead. Then he has no pocket presence, and he's either going to run for his life or get sacked like he's had happen in so many games. So we'll see. Their defense is good. I just wonder when the Jets defense is going to get so frustrated and so pissed off that they're like, enough of this. This is bull crap. And certainly following the story of Aaron Rodgers, I guess that, for fans around the NFL, if you hate the Jets, the silver lining in them winning and being anywhere near the playoffs is that Rodgers could come back, which I think is going to be one of the most incredible stories ever. If he can return in like week 16, 17, or 18, you believe this is going to happen with a freaking shredded Achilles?
I don't believe here's the thing. I don't believe it's one of those things where like, I can't believe this is happening. That's how I want to use that phrase in context.
Yeah.
I don't believe Aaron. If he says he wants to come back, I 100% believe him. Would it be unbelievable? Absolutely. It would be something where you'd be like, what? What just happened? Yeah. So it would be remarkable. It'd be an incredible story, obviously.
All right, let's talk about, did you want to hit the rest of the Thanksgiving games, or are you good?
No, we could go because
let's talk about one of the big stories here in Vegas. It is this incredible season that UNLV has had. And, I keep saying on the air, as I'm watching it, I can't believe what's happening, but I have to step back because the way Odom runs his program, he's so low key, it's so routine that I don't think a lot of us are going to get what's just happened if they win a 10th regular season game. And that's crazy. But again, they don't get too high, they don't get too low. He's done an incredible job, and it's too bad you're not around the program as much as you were at times when Arroyo was running it. The feel of the program, Willie, it's just different. It's just completely different. I mean, Odom, first of all, is very engaging with the media. He doesn't answer everything, but he tries to answer as well as he can. And I think a lot of the sort of professionalism that he carries himself with has gone to the players, and I've seen players change. They speak differently. There's a different sort of confidence. The close games that they've been in, they make the plays. I think they're 3-0 in one-score games. In Arroyo's time, they were 1-10 in one-score games, and it's something we talked about before Brady Hill kind of flopped this year. Teams like San Diego State would always win close games. You just knew at the end, hey, they're going to win, and it's so bizarre in a one-year turnaround to watch UNLV games and be like, you know what, they're going to get the job done. Although I will say the Air Force game, when their backs are on the goal line and they've got Air Force has 4 plays to go 9 yards, I'm like, there's no way they're going to do this, and UNLV did it. They did it.
Yeah. It's almost like it's become contagious with what they're doing with one another. You know what I mean? And you talked about it. You told me, right, when I came back from my trip, you told me this summer, that, how different the feel was, and just, a lot of you guys had said, we don't know how SEC schools are run or their camps go or whatever, but this definitely doesn't feel Mountain Westish. It feels like, almost feels pro, other media members have said the same thing when they would just go out there randomly. It's like, this is different. This is not, and it's not a knock against the Mountain West, but when you bring that Power 5 experience from programs that are annually playing the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Georgias, the Tennessees, so on and so forth, and you're preparing like that, yes, there's going to be a different sort of mindset and there's going to be a different attitude among the players. And then when they start winning, it becomes contagious. And that is exactly what you're seeing. And the one home game that I made it out to, I asked Barry Odom, because you always hear the credit from the players say, well, it's this man right here. It's everything the coach, blah, blah, blah. And I asked him, when you came here, you're coming from the SEC, you're coming from Power 5 to here. What have these young men taught you? And he's just as humble in saying, in terms of, sticking to the basics, going to the fundamentals and sticking to what practicing what you preach and loyalty among the guys and, just saying all the right things, but it's not a lip service with this guy. And I think that's what we've experienced with some of the coaches in the past. Reserve Tony Sanchez. I think Tony Sanchez was a man of his word. I just think that, he was kind of under the gun up against it. I still say he deserved one more season, but Barry Odom is a seasoned veteran, polished Power 5 coach that is proving to be the right guy. And as of right now, with the record that it is, and I know they're not going to take this in consideration, but it's the number one team in the nation against the spread, which says something in terms of how they're winning. He should be the favorite for National Coach of the Year.
He should be. And they've been underrated the entire time. And I don't blame people. They haven't seen this before, so they haven't nailed it on the point spread with them. I think this week's going to be really interesting. One, San Jose State's playing good football. Brent Brennan's a really interesting dude. They play fast and loose, I think undisciplined at times. So we'll see if the Rebels get sucked into some of the trash talk and dirty play. The other thing is you've got a coach and a coaching staff that has talked about keeping the outside noise outside, not getting too high, not getting too low, not getting distracted. Is the fact that Odom and Marion is being called for jobs, reportedly interviewed for the San Diego State head coaching job. Odom, I assume, has, an agent, a middleman who is dealing with people, gauging his interest for other jobs like Michigan State and Mississippi State. And there's going to be a lot more jobs open. Who the hell knows? Maybe Colorado is open. We know Texas A&M is open. There's going to be a bunch of jobs that are intriguing. So can the coaches deal with the outside distractions? I don't even know how that works when you've got, they've arguably got 3 games left. How do you juggle all that, Willie?
I personally think that it's not even a blip. You know why? Because when the Rebels were 4-1, when they were 5-1, at every step of the way, there's been somebody, if not multiple, whether it's fans or media members, well, who's gonna get the call first? Who are they gonna come after? They're gonna lose the OC. Odom gonna stick around. That noise has been out there. Now that they're just adding schools to it, that's because schools are losing coaches and they're having disappointing seasons. So they're saying, well, this opening could come. I think the noise has been there since midseason when they saw the improvement that UNLV football was having. It becomes a reality because, yes, you're that much better, but it can't become a distraction because of what's at stake. Let's say that let's just say, okay, they become bowl eligible, but they're out of the race for the Mountain West. Fresno State hadn't lost. UNLV didn't beat Air Force, whatever the case was. Maybe it could be a distraction for the home finale. And now what are you going to do? But they're going to go to a bowl game. There's a lot at stake. And this team has been through way too much in coming together this year for one more game that it's going to be a distraction. I just don't buy into that. I don't believe it in any way, shape, or form. Not with what they've built emotionally and mentally in that locker room.
Make a prediction now on the future. Brendan Marion stays or goes?
I think both coaches stay for at least one more season. I don't think that they're going to leave when it's such a dramatic turnaround that now it's a matter. It's easy to say, well, the job's done. We got bowl eligible. We won we made it to the championship. We won the conference championship. We went to the bowl, whatever it is they do. But I just think it's sort of like the same conversation we had with about Lindy LaRock so many times. she has more vested interest here in town. Obviously, she's from here. She wants to raise her family here. She's not getting the Stanford job. Tara Vanderveer has told me that personally. She's not going to get it when Tara retires. So when it comes to this staff, I just think 1 year in and then they're going to turn around and bolt. All of a sudden, how does that? How do you not compare them to who? I can't. His name's escaping me. The who left before the season started? The OC, former Louisville, Petrino.
Bobby Petrino. Yeah.
I mean, we sat and talked about that situation when he had the meet and greet, right? The little private meet and greet with us before the season at Parkway, and he brought up the that stuff, which remains between all of us. But he talked about that situation. Sure, he finished the season, like I said, and so on and so forth. But I just actually, just before we went live, I saw a story, and it's a secondary site, but they ranked the top 7 or 8 teams that could go Group of 5 to Power 5, where they're at sitting right now. And they got UNLV sitting second behind San Diego State, but ahead of Memphis and Boise State and South Florida. They have them right up there. So I'll say it again, like I said it about Lindy. If this athletic department, now all of a sudden, Kevin Kruger's the one that's got to pick up some, start pushing some buttons and making some things happen. But if this athletic department continues to surge, and then they go into Power 5, and then you get local money buying in with the NIL, they can afford the money that you're maybe be tossing at Odom to leave, and then hoping he does well. He's got to hope he does well elsewhere, and then get an extension. So where's he going to go? Go back to the SEC and then battle against the Sabins and whoever else,
right?
Or stay here and just dominate for a couple more years, and build his stock. Yeah. If he did what he did with a Royals team per se, what's gonna happen in 2 years when it's his team, like we saw with Lindy? So I just don't think that anybody's going anywhere just yet. At least not both of them. Marion, what is it? Brennan
Marion. Yep.
Brent Marion.
Yep.
Maybe in next year or a couple of years, but I think that they're together one more year. I think they want to prove this year wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, I don't have any connections on this, but Brennan Marion has a history of kind of moving up the ladder. Coaches for a couple of years, 1 year, and moves on. I think the opportunities are going to be too rich for him. He's likely, if he doesn't get a head coaching job, he's likely to be an OC at a Power 5, and the coordinator money at Power 5, Willie, is just crazy. I mean, Barry Odom took a $10,000 pay cut to come here as the DC from DC at Arkansas to be the head coach at UNLV. So I think Marion's going to be coveted. We'll probably get somewhere north of, $1.2 million. Those are good opportunities. They're hard to pass up. But I do believe, and I haven't said this on the record, and what I say is very important, right? No, I do believe that there's a good relationship with Eric Harper and Barry Odom. And I think Odom will respect the fact that Harper gave him a chance. Harper has backed him fully. You realize at this school, a lot of the problems for the program, the football program, is the funding, the facilities, the amenities, that support. And it's not always easy to go somewhere and find, really good support from the top down. And they've made a lot of improvements. I mean, I don't know what the final expenditure was on the practice fields, but getting new practice turf, that stuff like that is a big deal. And they're adding, little things here and there. And obviously they got some funding from the Raiders. So I think he's going to stick it out. His son is going to be a senior, his younger son at Faith Lutheran. So I think he sticks it out. I think you laid out the opportunities. They are on the verge of being in something. If it's not officially Group of 5, it's going to be Group of 5 light. If Oregon State and Washington State don't get scooped up by, say, the Big 12. But in a couple of years, this could be a conference where, it's the new West Coast Conference, not the WCC, but you get my point. And then everyone in the conference is going to up their funding. So it's going to be a pretty good football conference. So I think there's a lot of reasons he can stay. But I believe that relationships are important to him. And I think he's convinced that the school has bought into football and they're going to support him. And you're right. How exciting is it now? Think about what they're doing. On the recruiting trail, as of like 3 weeks ago, they had so many commits for 2024, Willie, that they're like, all right, now we basically have to stop. And we have to be really picky with any remaining commits, and they may have some attrition. They had a quarterback from Texas committed. He got more attention, and then UCLA came in and swooped him up. So they're still looking for some positions. And then what do they do in the transfer portal now? Think about it. They had 2 guys from Arkansas trust them, right? In Jackson Woodard and Jalen St. John. And Jalen St. John is arguably one of the best offensive linemen on the team now, and that's what they thought he was going to be, but he got hurt. Woodard's been a great replacement for Austin Ashike. He stepped right in. He's a leader. He's a great player. So now you're going to have Power 5 kids who are on the outside looking in, and they're like, oh, wow, okay, 9, 10, 11 wins. And look at these facilities, look at this coaching staff. Now I'll join in. So they could have, another, who knows, 6, 8, 10 Power 5 guys join the team getting ready for next year. So the upside is there, and I think Odom likes it. I try to read guys when they're not on the air. And I think he's happy here, but who knows? If a job does come along, Willie, like I don't like the Mississippi State job, but if a job comes along and it's $5 million a year, and then there's a buyout of like $25 or $30 million, that starts to become generational money. Yeah, you're going somewhere else. Say it's Michigan State. You're going somewhere else, and Michigan State is a hard job. But if you're there for 3 years and they want to get all impatient and blow you out, then you probably have 20 or 25 or $30 million on the back end. That's a lot of money. So that goes into the decision as well.
It is. And you have to take that in consideration that any one of us, would look at something like that for an opportunity. And then all of a sudden what goes out the window is, okay, do I want to go into a Power 5 school where I probably don't have a shot to resurrect the program, knowing that Michigan and Ohio State or Alabama and Georgia, that they're just going to run roughshod through everybody. And so does it look bad on my resume? But at this point, do I care? Because at the end of 3 years, if they want to buy me out, I never have to coach again. It's a matter of, but here's the thing. You've covered him all season. I met him those first few times. And then, went to the one game and have just listened to the interviews and everything. I'm not saying he's not, we're all, we all want to make money, but there's just something about this dude who just, his passion for football and sort of just growing young men in college to a certain level. I think this year has really, I think there's a different sense of pride in building a program like this. I'll give you a perfect example. We've had him on the show before. DJ Campbell, the coach of Centennial. There's a different kind of pride in him going in there, a former Cheyenne high school star who goes on to play at Cal, goes on to play as a journeyman in the NFL, comes back to town. He's an assistant for so many years. He takes over Centennial and wins the state championship his first season. There's a lot more pride and there's a lot more feeling to that than Gorman winning their umpteenth state championship. So there's something to be said about coming in to one of the most disastrous programs out of 130 plus college football teams in the past 2 decades and vying for the Mountain West championship in your first season.
Yep. It's a crazy story. You think they win on Saturday?
I do. I have a lot of respect for Brennan and what he's done up there. If you remember, Steve, it was the COVID year. They were displaced from up there. They started off they were down in New Mexico. They came over here. They were displaced for how many weeks? And this guy put them together and kept them together. I should say. Yeah. He's a really good coach. He's, it's as far as you talk about a locker room guy, right? His players buy into his philosophy. So it'll be a great battle of minds, but I just think at this point, the momentum is going to be hard to stop. The Rebels they're on a mission, and it's senior night.
I'm sorry. That is important. I think there's somewhere between 19 and like 23 seniors who are walking. I want to mention 2 other things before we get out of here. On Brennan, remember, Brennan was hot as a pistol on the coaching market, and Arizona showed some early interest. Now Arizona, I think, hired the right guy in Jed Fish, but he turned down Arizona. My guess is that Brennan is waiting for UCLA, which who knows, might open. But I also got the feeling that Brent Brennan, because they had their whole stadium rebuild and their football facility on the way, I had a feeling that he kind of liked where he was. When you turn around a program like that, you're a god to the local football fans. You got 5-6 years to continue to build, and if there's tough times, they're going to stick with you. And he's taken them from 0-1 win to where they are now, which they're not having a great season because they got off to a slow start, but they're going to close it out really strong here. especially if they can beat UNLV and if they somehow sneak into the title game. The other thing I want to mention, there's two things on UNLV football. We use Deion as the example, right? Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
Deion came in to a program that was struggling, but I don't think he really saw the potential of what he had when he walked in, and he tried to make a big statement and talked about his Louis and, everyone's going to get out. He pushed a bunch of really good players out who were starting at better programs in Colorado, which to me, that's a cardinal sin. First of all, you're treating the kids and their family like crap. They came to that school. They got a commitment from the school. They gave you a commitment, not him personally, but they worked for the school hard the previous years or last year, and he boots them. I still admire that Odom and his staff combed through the roster, really worked it before spring and in spring, and then came up with a core like 38, 40, 42 guys that Arroyo had left behind. And they have gotten so much out of the holdovers. Think about how some of the young guys have matured here. And when we had heard about them with Arroyo, and the Odom staff stuck with him, they didn't just say, hey, they're not our guys, get out.
And developed them.
Yep. There's so many guys. Tiger Shanks is having the best year of his career. Uncle Trigg, as we call him, Amani Trigg Wright, has elevated his game. A guy like Marcel McDuffie, who had 14 tackles, right? McDuffie was waiting his turn, and people didn't know a whole lot about him. And him next to Jackson Woodard, and now Fred Tompkins, who's a JUCO going. By the way, Fred Tompkins, I was watching the other night. I've really gotten into Last Chance U. Fred Tompkins was on like Last Chance U back in 2019. What a lot of these kids, the 5th and 6th year guys on UNLV have gone through, if they were JUCOs, and even the guys in the program, the COVID year, like that's the kind of thing. Hey, they stuck with the program, man, when maybe they weren't being treated right. It wasn't a good atmosphere. I'm so glad so many of those guys have been rewarded.
Well, and think about this intangible. The very first thing that he said when he got here, and we all questioned, we were like, oh, well, someone made sure to tell him what Arroyo dropped the ball on, right? And he stepped on that soapbox, is staying local. Well, how many times when it was Sanchez taking over for Bobby Houck, and we said, okay, now it's your program. You're 3 years in. Now these are your guys. You have the facility. You have the this. You have the that. Go do it. With Arroyo, it was now it's your team. You have the facilities, the practice fields, and Allegiant Stadium. Now go win. Okay, there's nothing left for us to tell Odom to do. And my point is, we said, go do that, win. And the locals that we were losing to Division I schools, that was their battle cry. Well, we're losing them to these other, or the Power 5 schools, the Gorman greats, the Liberty guys, the guys that are going to the Pac-12. Guess what? Can no longer say that, because now everything has happened. You have a incredible coaching staff. You have the facilities. You have Allegiant. You have a winning season, possibly a Mountain West championship. You're now going to get some of those local guys because he promised and vowed to keep guys home. Yep. Now you can go after the Gorman, Liberty, Arborview, Faith, all these top guys that are bolting. And I've always said, don't knock the kid. A lot of it doesn't have to do with UNLV. They also just want to leave town.
Yep.
They want to leave the nest and go experience college. But now UNLV becomes a lot more enticing.
You can believe. It's not just a vision. You can believe. You've seen it play out. All right, so this all builds up to our final point here. And I assume anyone watching this is into UNLV sports, is a believer in UNLV sports, is really enjoying the football game. It's the people who are not, true followers of UNLV that have to go out there on Saturday. What do you think? What happens? I mean, I'm very cautious on predicting crowds in this town, because you never know what excuse they're going to come up with. Can they get their highest crowd is probably 25 or 26, and they, in both the Hawaii game and the Wyoming game, they got a really good boost from their fans. Can they get to 35,000 for this game?
Well, they can. It's just a matter of, I think one good thing is that we're post F1, first of all. So traffic flows a little bit easier. I can tell you, there are many different ways to get. The fact that you can get to Allegiant from 3-4 different ways. Realistically, you could take 215 to Trop, shoot. And I'm really going to go through this traffic, because that's a big excuse for people. So yes, you can take the 215 to Trop, down to Russell, and come down. You can come around 215. There's many different ways to get to Allegiant. So traffic shouldn't be an issue. Number one. Number two, there's nothing else going on other than there's a fight. But if you're going to the fight, then you've already put the money up for a fight. Realistically, it's a 4-day weekend. There should be all the state championships are done. The guys that just played in the state championship that, hey, we're being recruited by UNLV or we'd like to go to UNLV. 4 different state championships, right? The families. So there's a lot of different things that you can look at, different crowds, different genres that should be interested in this game. Not to mention it's UNLV with everything that's at stake and the hype and the coverage that this team has received. There's nobody in town that doesn't know about it. If you're a sports fan, even if you're not, you've been inundated with UNLV football in this turnaround, and it should be of some interest. There's really no excuse, none. I think the Golden Knights play that night, but you're comparing a team that is still at the beginning of the season, and the price of the ticket is completely outweighs, right? It's affordable. So I don't think that there's any of the excuses that you've come up with in the past. You don't have it anymore. There's no reason to, there's no reason to come up with that. Hey, honey, you go weekend shopping for Christmas. Me and the boys are going to go to the game or whomever, Right. I mean, there's plenty of outs. There's plenty of reasons to go to the game.
Yep. And if you haven't been to the stadium, a good, less expensive option to get in. Yep. So go check it out. And a lot of these guys are local. I always think rooting for the local teams and a team that's built with local players is fun to get behind. All right, Willie, what's cooking with the gym lately? I know you've been in it, but what's going on?
Oh man, it's amazing, really. Our perfect gym, Jordan. He every 4 or 5 months he revitalizes his sales strategy. He always keeps the client in mind in terms of their fitness and their goals and so on and so forth. But what the deals that he offers. So what's kind of wild is that I personally have had a goal for X amount of time. Goal ends with the Super Bowl, but I have employed one of the trainers that works at our gym. She's my trainer. So I go onto my phone, I go onto the Perfect app, and she programs my workouts, my meals. So I have to go into the gym twice a week to see her. There are some days where I have something. The other day when I had the Stanford game, the game tipped off at 1:30. So I went in there first thing in the morning because it was on my way. It was easy and knocked out a workout. But what's crazy is being in there and seeing the different clientele that's coming in there, and it's very rare because it doesn't get packed. That's the beauty of our gym. It's not a packed private gym. It's set up for personal training. You got the random guys or girls that come in and train on their own. Some of them that do privates, and so they have the program and they do their training there. But people are they're also starting to work on their New Year's resolutions now because they know what they're going to be eating during the holidays. Yep. We see that a lot. You see the people that know. And Jordan has already gotten a handful of girls that are getting ready for their auditions because, these day clubs, they start auditioning in January.
So you got to be in shape at the beginning of the year. That's
they got to be ready now. So there's some girls in there. There's a couple of bikini competitors. One already competed. Another one's coming up. And then, his garden variety, just, his clients that have been coming there, long time clients. So the Perfect Gym is up and running. The Perfect Gym, we're having a good time. And by the way, if you're on Instagram, you can go to his page, Perfect, PERFICT Gym, and DM him Pops. Just put Pops, POPS in caps, and say, he said I could get 7 days. And he'll give you 7 days with some training for free and consultation. So check it out.
Right. One more thing I got to pop for you.
Yeah. Sporting
Tribune is I cannot believe what Arash has built so quickly.
Yeah.
He's got so many freaking contributors. And, especially if you love Vegas, Willie's all over that. He's got so many LA connections. I keep seeing him add people with, tremendous resumes like yourself. So Arash is doing a really good job. And Sporting Tribune is one of the things, the first thing in the morning, he sends out an email and you get, the top 10 stories or so. So impressive what you guys have built over there.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun being a part of it. The one thing he's doing, you mentioned the roster of writers. One thing that what's kind of cool what he's doing is he's bringing on journalists, journalism students from SoCal. So whether it's USC or whatever, UCLA, wherever they're at. A couple of Fullerton was one. And then now our good friend Kevin E. Martin, she is running the Rebel Report program over there. So he's going to be getting some more people to do some video here to cover Vegas. So I really appreciate the fact that he's mentoring a lot of young kids. You know how I feel about that. You've seen me mentor a lot of young, reporters. There's some that we knew when they were at UNLV, and now they're who they are, right? And I remember mentoring them. So I really appreciate that, being a part of that. Occasionally he asked me to help and mentor them. Last year for Super Bowl, when I did the Super Bowl show for Lotus, I had one of the girls that covers the Rams or the Chargers, one of the two. She's down there. Can't remember what she was covering last season. But anyway, it is growing. Thanks to the number of writers and the input and the effort that they're putting into it. It has been a good ride. One thing I'm looking forward to that we're going to be working on, myself and Steve Karp, is our top 10 stories, local stories.
Wow.
And I know what I'm going to submit as far as meaningful to the community. I put it out there. I know you saw it. I did a poll. I put one on Facebook. I wanted to know what people thought, especially old time Vegas, the most meaningful sports story in the top 10 this year. And of course, it was the list that the first four that I put were Golden Knights, Aces, Fire Josh McDaniels, and UNLV football.
That's a hell of a list.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a list.
But it's gonna be fun putting that top 10 together. So.
Yeah. All right, Willie. Well, I appreciate you doing so much time today. Hope you're doing well. We'll do it again soon. Hope you had a good time, and that was fun. I miss you, buddy.
I miss you too. Good to have you on, and I'm sure I'll see you out at the games.